Hello, we are the Institute of Race Relations, and my name is Makoni Maja. We are outside once again, this time in our neighboring province of Mpumalanga, here to document some of the water issues that we have been concerned about emanating from this province, specifically the municipality of Govan, Mbeki, where we stand. We will be speaking to the mayor about what he thinks the issue is and what exactly is causing the water shortages. And then thereafter, we'll be heading on to the towns of Bethal and Emzinoni. There we will be speaking with a resident or local councillor, as well as some of the residents in the town, to understand how the water shortages is affecting their daily life. Water is indeed life, and water and human sanitation are basic services that should be provided to everyone. They are human rights and everyone should be entitled to them. So we will be speaking to the mayor and to the residents to get both sides of the story. Stick around as we cover this very crucial and important subject. Hello everybody, my name is Makoni Maja, here with the Institute of Race Relations in the wonderful province of Mpumalanga in the municipality of Govan and Mbeki, and we are joined by the mayor of this municipality, Mr. Nhlakanipho Zuma. Mayor, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to speak to us. We are here to discuss some of the water issues and challenges that have been coming up in the media, but also that the cries of your residents have reached us all the way in Gauteng, and we're trying to understand from your perspective what the issue is and whether or not it's being resolved and when the residents can receive surety of the resolution. But first, let's speak about your mayoralty. I believe you were re-elected in 2021, and prior to you, there were reports there were like 3 mayors in a 5-year term. So you've brought about some stability to the municipality. Talk to me about that, your re-election and your plans as you continue to be mayor in this municipality.
No, thank you very much, Makoni. I think that the first thing that we must acknowledge is that we are from a serious era of imbalances where a lot of people within the community of Govan Mbeki didn't have much access to services. And for that, it led to a lot of riots, a lot of instability, whether political and so forth. And with that, we had to create a means for us to be able to stabilize. With the recent challenges that we are receiving as outcries, they are necessary cries on the basis that looking at where we come from, there is no way that you would not have this kind of challenges that we are having. I would want to start on the issue of access. Our government invested a lot in trying to ensure that as much people in our communities have access to basic services. That includes water, electricity, sanitation. And unfortunately, while we were creating a huge base of access, we were depleting the very available storage and capacity. And unfortunately, there were improper planning and strategizing, which led to a depletion in terms of our capacity and resource. What I can indicate to you is that we do not purify our water as the municipality. We buy water from rainwater. That's the first thing. Secondly, we acknowledge that we are a scarce water country, and that causes a lot of challenge. So the challenge that is faced by our residents is not immune to COVID-19, but it's a countrywide kind of a challenge with different figures across the country. But one thing that we can tell you is that we are doing all the strides possible to ensure that our people have access to basic services. We first had a problem of riots in Govan Mbeki in 2010. We had the biggest march that I've ever seen in the locality there. Secondly, we had quite a few, building up to 2017. Then in 2017, we had quite a few of our buildings being banned, including the mall that was newly constructed in Mpumalanga, which was the first mall in Mpumalanga. It was burnt down by the communities on the basis of their anger with regards to improper supply of electricity. Because now everybody has access, but that access means that there's a particular number of hours a day that you will not be able to have electricity because of a limitation with regards to electricity supply. So that's where our challenge started. So on average, the communities of Govan and Mbeki were receiving plus minus 12 hours worth of electricity a day.
Half of the day,
basically. So differing from different communities where there's high demand, even less. Where there's low demand, yes, it will be 12 plus and so forth. So we're happy to announce that today, as we sit here, we're sitting on an average of 23 hours plus. To most of the communities, it's 24 hours, but our average is 23 plus because there are few communities that we are still attending to ensure that they do have electricity.
Which is an enormous improvement.
Massive. Now, yourselves as an institute for race research, you would understand that firstly, there are certain trends that you would not expect from a particular race. And we saw with the era of President Zuma, we saw there was Save SA association where there was Zuma Must Fall. Zuma Must Fall kind of protest which included the whites, if I may call them like that. The second one was here in Govan, where white people were burning tires on a national road, which is something that you would not see in any other places because it's assumed that that particular race is very civilized. But for this area, we saw it happening because of electricity in Bethel. So as we sit here, Bethel is receiving electricity on an average of 23 hours plus. There is no protest about that. Our next battle now is the issue of water.
Yeah, so I'm not sure that civilization can be argued along racial lines, but I'm glad to hear that you've made significant progress. I mean, you've made a 180-degree turnaround in terms of providing electricity to your residents and have managed to quash or even resolve some of those issues that they were experiencing as far as that item of service delivery is concerned. And it is true that South Africa comes from a very long history where, Black people were excluded from services for a long time. But also suffice it to say that 30 years, in that 30 years of democracy, there's also been enormous access that's been provided to those communities that were historically marginalized. And as you say, some of these service delivery issues date back as far as 2010, 2017, as you recounted in your explanation. What do you attribute the water shortages to? Other than the fact that there's obviously, South Africa is a water scarce country. So we recently produced a report documenting the water crisis in Gauteng, right? The imminent water crisis, despite the fact that the minister argues that it's not a crisis. According to our report, we found that if restrictions are not introduced to mitigate against that potential crisis, then it will ultimately unfold, right? And yes, scarcity is an issue, right? The fact that rainfall has been inadequate and that the Val Dam is not able to fill up to requisite levels to accommodate ever-growing population increases. But that the government could have planned ahead for that, right? We know today, sitting in 2024, that 30 years from now, 20 years, 10 years from now, populations in Mpumalanga will be far greater than they are at present. And so we should expect that, we should begin now planning for increasing those water resources. But I understand that's far beyond your scope of work as mayor. What do you attribute the immediate issues of water service delivery and shortages specifically to towns like Bethal and Emzinoni to?
Maybe let me go back a bit when you say that you understand that yourself as the executive mayor, those are some of far-reaching areas than your scope. No. The first thing maybe that we must continuously try to inculcate into our communities is that we are one government. In governing Mbeki, solving a problem of water, it reduces the burden on the national government. Therefore, we all have a role to play. Therefore, whatever national government is planning, we are integrated in one way or the other.
Absolutely. What I was trying to distinguish there is to not attribute the issues of the Valdam to you, right? Which Mpumalanga also receives its water from Red Water, which abstracts from the Valdam. So I don't want it to seem as though I'm piling up all the country's water issues on you as a mayor in Govan and Mbeki. But absolutely, the integration is there, and what you can do to alleviate the Department of Water and Sanitation's issues would obviously be very helpful.
Look, the same reason that I'm putting across, understanding your point, as one says, we are one government. Val River starts in Crescesmere, which is here in Sugalikwa in Mpumalanga. Then it goes down, flows. Even ourselves, our rivers pour into Val River up until subsequently Valdam. So we have a role that we are playing in one way or the other. Rainwater has recently introduced a program about saving Val on the basis that there's a lot of pollution that is going there. We are contributors. We must. Yeah. So we cannot speak of availability factor of water in the absence of not speaking about the state of our rivers. I want to answer your latter question, but I cannot do it without starting from the beginning in saying that, look, as we create access in certain portions and aspects, at the same time, there are challenges that come with it. One of those is education to our people, which is a serious attributing factor to the crisis that we are faced with, because one, our people have not learned and understood properly that we are a water scarce country. The number of leaks that we have are not supposed to be. The kind of losses that we have, as Govan and Mbeki Municipality was seated at 49% in terms of our water losses percentage.
Owing to pipe leaks?
Pipe leaks, supply of people that are not within the grid, the ones that will have connected themselves illegally and so forth. So there's a variety of contributing factors. But what I'm then trying to say to you is that in the absence of our community having a proper understanding of the frustration that this natural resource is having, then we are far from reaching the point that we want to achieve. So the issue of awareness, we have not done much as government to ensure our people understand the depth of the crisis we're faced with. The second one will therefore be the volumes at which we are polluting. Ourselves as the municipality, not excluding the community, you'll find a lot of waste that would not be taken to the dumping site as licensed. Instead, it will be dumped any other open space that is available. When rain comes, all of that waste goes to the rivers. It pollutes the very same source. Ourselves, we have been recently fined by the court on the basis that we are polluting the river, the same Val River that we're talking about, because we were discharging raw sewage to the very same source as a result of certain challenges that come from the very same community. Our waste treatment plants were not up to standard on the basis that they are being vandalized by the very same community. So you don't have to teach people about cleanliness, but you also have to teach responsibility. So responsibility about water availability doesn't start when water reaches a tap. It starts from a number of activities that are prior to that.
I understand that and your concerns about vandalism and breaches, but I also think, Mayor, the municipality can exercise its power to introduce measures of deterrence, right? Whether it's overconsumption of water or even dumping. For me, I get the sense that it still comes back to exercising political will and political power to enforce measures to control for people vandalizing, for example, and causing leaks. But even with the issue of breaches, I often have an issue when communities are blamed for breaching connections because they've had a lack of access, right? Things like riots and things like breaches of whether it's electricity or even water are indications that people are being deprived and that now they're taking matters into their own hands. So I would believe that is a response to years of marginalization and disadvantage that people are now fed up, and because the law has not been accommodating them and institutions haven't been growing enough to reach and meet their needs, they've decided to take matters into their own hands. So I would still argue that it should be within the municipality's purview to curb those water leaks, as I argue it is in Gauteng, where you also have municipalities like Mpumalanga with 48% water leaks. This is safe drinking water that goes down the drain that could be going to those communities. And that is one of my contentions, essentially, is we can't complain about scarcity of resources and then also let nearly half of the water go down the drain. I'm wondering what you're doing about that, the issue of leaks and the fact that 49% of water that you're losing to leaks could actually be going to the municipal users.
I think that you went directly to the point where we began, the issue of access. Because if we do not address the issue of access appropriately, then we will misconstrue our conclusion in terms of what exactly is the cause of the problem. That is why one had to start with the issue of access. Let's start by saying on the electricity matter, for example, we could not introduce a program of limiting losses when we had not been able to address the issue of access, because people were tapping into our infrastructure illegally and causing the damage they were causing on the basis that they were claiming we do not have access. Therefore, the first course on electricity that we utilized was to ensure that there is sufficient capacity to supply everybody, before you can therefore implement your legislation or your law that will prevent usage that is abnormal and that is illegal. That is why we now have implemented and installed over 30,000 prepaid meters across Govan and Mbeki within the past 2 years. And this has now reduced even the load that we are consuming from ESCOM, allowing us to then start tackling the debt that we have with ESCOM. So it's the same approach that we have now transposed towards water mitigation. The first thing that we did was to ensure that there is sufficient reservoirs. Different areas within the 12 nodal points of our municipality are having different capacities. For example, you have Bethal and Emzinoni with the biggest storage, more than any other area out of the 12. But they have the biggest problem of water availability because of the pipeline that is limiting that storage to get full.
Describe that to me. The pipeline is limiting the storage of the water reservoir in Bethal.
Yes. So this is how we get our water. Our water comes from rainwater. It gets pumped from different stations, from where it is treated to a particular pump station, from that particular pump station to the municipality. From the point of entry, it gets disseminated and decentralized into different storages, which are our own reservoirs as the municipality, whether it's Adulam for purposes of pumping to Emba, whether it's Wilderness for purposes of pumping to Secunda, Trichat, and Bethal. So as you continue to branch off, the pipeline itself determines the quantity of water that you can get to the end. So the bigger, the better.
Okay.
So the smaller, unfortunately,
The more restricted.
restricted.
Water. Okay.
So no matter how much storage you have on the other side, a particular amount will only reach that particular point. That has been the biggest crisis with us and Bethal and Emzinoni. On the basis that if rainwater has a breakdown and is unable to pump to Govan and Mbeki for a particular number of hours, by the time they start pumping, consumption will be distributed to the nearest points of arrival of water. So your Leandra, your Mpumalanga, your Secunda event will get water first. Now, mind you that as they draw, they reduce the volume of pressure that then gets to pump towards Bethal. So by the time it gets to Bethal, volumes are low, pressure is low, and that limits therefore the
Access.
the access.
Okay.
So that is what then causes a problem for us. So as the municipality, what we then did is to allocate funds for different projects for different purposes. In Leandra, we have a crisis of storage. There's a limitation, therefore we're building a reservoir there. Once it's done, communities in Leandra will not have any form of problems. In Kinross, we have a problem of the same pipeline, which was smaller. The population grew. You spoke about issues of population growth. Population grew. Unfortunately, while the storage is there, it also couldn't fill. We have upgraded the pipe network. There is a very small joint that must be done between ourselves and rainwater, and that requires cooperation from both sides. Once it's done, people of Kinross will be without any interruption once the water is being pumped. For Bethal and Emzinoni, we are now going to be advertising, I think during the course of this month, we are going to be advertising a 50 million worth of a project to upgrade the pipeline from Trichat to Bethal. Because in the absence of doing that, those communities will continue to suffer while we have access to water. The problem will be the limit and the restrictions that are not even prescribed by us, but instead by the infrastructure itself. So these are some of the interventions that we're bringing in. Once we have been able to solve the issue of access, only then can we be able to fruitfully deal with issues of illegal tappings that will drastically reduce our losses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining that. I think people hearing this will find that that explanation is very extensive, and it also explains and characterizes the issue very well in terms of the fact that the infrastructure itself is handicapped and how it can provide water to those different areas that you've spoken about, but also that you are actually working at increasing capacity and accelerating the extent to which people can be, water can be availed to them. I think there will be those who are watching who say, but Mayor, the reasons have changed because before it was that Rand Water is consuming, or Rand Water is providing so much water to Gauteng, our neighboring province, that now it's limiting how much access it can provide to Mpumalanga. Previously, it was that there was no electricity to pump, or that pumps were not working. I think to those people who are saying, Mayors, the stories keep changing, what would your response to them be?
Well, we live in a world where only one thing is constant, it's change. Therefore, we cannot dictate a story for today to be the story for tomorrow. On the basis that today rainwater is pumping, and if tomorrow there is a problem in Eguruleni with their electricity infrastructure, and they are unable to give energy to rainwater for them to pump to us, electricity is a cause. It's not because of availability of water, but it's the issue of electricity so that they can be able to pump. So stories will continue to change, but what is most crucial is for our communities to understand the process and be able to understand explanations as they come. There is a period where we had a problem of water supply to our communities on the basis of us not being able to pay rainwater. That was a reason at one particular point. Now, that reason is not here today. It might be there tomorrow. I do not know.
So there was that issue
Yes.
of you having a payment arrangement to settle the debt. How much is the municipality's, where does the municipality's debt stand at present? What are those repayment plans? I read a story in the media where you were being accused of having a 10 million shortfall to the monthly repayments that you're supposed to be making towards settling the debt. Discuss that with us.
Look, in the midst, excuse me, in the midst of all the reasoning that we are giving, common sense must kick in. If we are having 49% losses, it means that we
You're
are
not
literally
collecting
not
revenue,
collecting
losing
revenue.
money. Yeah.
Therefore, we have to subsidize water itself, which is not making money for us, with other commodities that we are providing. So, the first thing is to indicate that we are only generating income of 51% from whatever that we're getting. That's the revenue we're generating from water as a source.
This is owing to the culture of non-payment.
It's a lot of reasons. Now, when you look at that 49%, it's as if you made the same point that the water is just spilling to the ground. No, it's not the case. The first thing that contributes to those losses is the fact that we have 43 informal settlements. Now, all of those settlements have a right to receive water, but you can't bill them because they're informal. Therefore, we give them water for free. So we're giving people water, but at the same time, we can't bill them. Therefore, rainwater doesn't quantify that as a loss. It's water that you have consumed as the
bills at the
municipality,
municipality, and you owe them for that.
So it's seen as a negative, but it has its own positive because we are providing water to communities that do deserve to get water. That's the first part. The second part is that when rainwater has a breakdown and they are not pumping, whatever available water in our reservoirs, we then take it using water tanks to the communities. That water is therefore not billed. It's given for free to the community because we are solving and mitigating on a crisis. So it also goes back to the same percentage. So you might find that the water that goes to the ground is less than 10%. But when you quantify the whole loss, it amounts to.
So included in your water losses, 49% amount of that non-revenue water is the water that you're providing to informal settlements, as well as water that's being provided through the tankers.
Yes.
Okay.
To formal settlements.
To formal settlements.
Yeah. So there's quite a range. Then on the issue of our servicing of debt, there are two. We decided to engage and agree on a twofold approach with rainwater. The first one is us acknowledging that we owe rainwater, and this is the amount that we're owing. So currently we are owing rainwater 855 million. We've acknowledged that. We have agreed, we've signed off on how we are going to pay that amount. Then on monthly basis, they are providing us with water. We are consuming water, giving to our communities. We have to pay back. That is the current account. Now, we had to take a decision ourselves. Do we take every cent out of the 51% that we're getting and pay to rainwater and not solve the problems that literally caused us to be in debt, which is provision of water to informal settlement? Do we not formalize those informal settlements? Do we not provide them with quality water as other residents have that particular right? Do we not upgrade our infrastructure so that everybody who's paying for water is billed accordingly? So their meters must be accurate, must be operational. So we had to take that kind of a decision. Then we then said to rainwater, look, firstly, let's deal with the old debt. We're going to give you an average of about 160 to 180 million per annum towards that debt. And then with the current account, we are going to service it as and when resources allow. they said, "No, we're not comfortable. Actually, we want you to keep up with the current account so that it doesn't grow the old debt." We said, "We will try it, but these are the challenges that we have." Therefore, at the beginning of the year, we then said to them, "Look, we are going to pay you 5 million rand every week." They agreed.
That's
We-
25 million a month.
Yes. Gave them 20 million, yes, 20 to 25 million, depending on the length of the month. Around May, then they said, no. Now it seems as if you are comfortable in paying us this money. We would want you to
Increase the
Increase it.
repayments.
mind you, our bill per month is seated between 33 and 39 million. That is inclusive of the interest
Okay.
that they are charging us of about 7 million rand per month. So we then upped our game a bit to 6 million rand from May, if not June, which sustained us around 24 to 30 million each month. Of late, they then said, no, come closer. We've given you a chance to pick up. And we agreed to say that, no, we are going to up our game. We have now moved our weekly payment to 7.5 million, which then gives us something like 30 to 37 million rand per month, which brings us much closer to the actual target.
The monthly bill.
The
yes.
monthly bill. But as we do that, it also impacts on how much value do we have to restore and ensure maintenance of our infrastructure, because now most of our money is then going to them, and there's limitation in terms of us being able to upgrade and maintain our infrastructure.
So what about those allegations that you were actually, there were shortfalls to those repayments? There
Yes.
were reports that shortfalls of about 10 million were being incurred and that you were not actually meeting the repayment plan according to
That
the
is very-
arrangement you have with Rand Water.
That is very true. If you listened, I said to you our bill was seated between 33 to
And you were making
39,
20 to
and we were
25.
making 20.
Okay.
That is the shortfall
Okay.
that was
Which
being
you
incurred.
had already
We
communicated
acknowledged,
to
yes,
Rand
Rand
Water.
Water, yes.
All right. No, thank you, May. I think that well explains some of the issues and the challenges that you're explaining. I think you will still find that the inconsistent stories do not help, because for those on the receiving end, it seems there's no truth, right? If the stories are constantly changing, it doesn't give people confidence that you are actually on top of the issue. But I think that the people watching, and certainly the IR, will be keeping you honest on those promises of increasing capacity in the pipeline to areas like Bethal and Emzinoni, and then to the new reservoirs that you'll be constructing.
Thank you very much. I think that the more we talk truth to our reality, the better, because it's only then that people can be prepared to live with the conditions that are facing them. It's when people peddle lies that causes problems, because people expect something different and start planning towards that something different. So with your good selves telling this kind of stories and ensuring that whatever that I've said is truthful by going to the ground if possible, checking whether what I've said is there or not, is what is going to bring relief to our people.
And that is our next step, actually. We're going into Bethal and Emzinoni to speak to the councillor there and some of the residents about some of the improvements and the changes that we were discussing.
That is great.
Thank
So that was our interview with Mayor of Govan, Mbeki Municipality, Mayor Nhlakanipho Zuma, who was taking us through some of the water issues that they are facing as local government, but also some of the progress that they're making in resolving the lack of access to water services in the communities in the municipality. We are now headed to Bethal and Emzinoni to talk to residents directly and hear from them how the water crisis in the municipality is impacting their daily lives. Stay tuned. We have journeyed on into Emzinoni, a town near the Govan and Mbeki municipality, within the Govan and Mbeki municipality, and are joined by a councillor in the region, Councillor Sibongile Matebula, to speak to us about some of the issues that the residents have been encountering with respect to water and water shortages, but also to understand how they have been, as members of local government and the municipality, how they have been raising those issues and what the response has been from the government. Councillor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell me about what's been happening with the water issue and what you have been hearing from the municipality about why residents in this area, in this region, have not had water for a period going on, you said 3 years?
Yes. Since 3 years ago, starting from the municipality didn't pay rainwater years back. As much as today, we are owing rainwater a lot of billions. So since 3 years, we've been struggling with water here in Emzinoni. The residents have been struggling so much, and most of the time, even the water will come back, but it won't stay most of the hours. So we are really struggling with water in Emzinoni, especially here in Extension 5. You'll find out for months, I think from August this year, we didn't have water until now, November. So the other side of the location, they do get water, but this side of ours, we are really struggling.
So that's very dire, right? Like from August to November, that's nearly 3 to 4 months of residents having water interruptions and not having consistent supply of water, which is obviously a human right. It's enshrined in the Constitution. Access to water is access to basic services. How are the residents going by? What are they doing to provide for water despite the fact that the municipality is not able to supply?
Yeah, the residents were, I think in October, they were planning to do a strike because they did submit a motion, did submit letters to the mayor. But I think October, they wanted to do a strike, but the problem was it's year end. They were thinking about their children going to school. If they do a strike, so children won't go to school. So now it's exam time. So I think that one they stop. But we have most of ladies that are so old enough, but can't even carry a bucket of water, and they are drinking medication for sugar, diabetes, and other diseases. But they were having a problem.
So you were planning a strike, but because of life, children having to go to school and not wanting to interrupt schooling, it was postponed. When you were submitting those motions to the mayor, what was he saying? What was his response?
I will say on my side, I did write a motion to a mayor concerning water issue and electricity, but it was approved. Then it was referred to a mayoral committee, so it will come back maybe next year for answers, to get answers. And even if you can ask in council about the water crisis, they will tell you different stories. Now it's the pipe burst, now it's rainwater, now it's reservoir. So we don't know. Even myself, I'm a councillor, but I don't know the actual problem. What is the problem with water? Because from Leandra, when you start from Governing Bay, from Leandra, Evander, King Ross, Mbalenhle, they are all affected.
Yeah, no, that's definitely an issue. What would your message be to the mayor? We got an opportunity to speak to him and actually shored up that the reasons have been changing constantly, right? And that makes people not feel confident in whether or not they've been able to actually identify the problem and get to resolving it. He's assured us that a resolution is on the horizon, but what would your message be to him, especially when you're talking about the elderly in the area who need water to take things like medication, but also for just general sanitation, right? What would your message be to him?
Firstly, I would like the water issue to be resolved permanently, because I think last month, they approve a budget of 1.5 million for borehole. Yes, it's a solution, but for a elderly person to go and transfer or transport water from the other side to coming this side, it's gonna be hard for an old lady or an old man. So my message to the mayor will be, can he resolve urgently with water? Because we really need, even not myself only, but the community really needs water. This issue must be solved, because next year is 2025. We are going to my election 2026. How can he afford not people having water?
And how is the community getting by without water? What plans are they making? Are water tankers able to travel in this region to provide water? How are they actually able to supplement the lack?
They are giving us a truck, water tankers, but it was not enough. And water tanker, it can come just once a week, while you don't have a water the whole week. Some of them, they were paying a van to go and fetch water somewhere that they have water. You need to spend. At the end, the municipality wants people to pay rent. So how you determine not giving people water, and at the end of the month you want money? Yes, so it's a challenge. I even experienced for my granddaughter here in my house about the water issue. She was having an infection. Then I took her to a doctor. The doctor said, no, it's an infection because maybe she was in the dirty toilet or not having been clean enough. So imagine one child, how many children are affected with the water issue?
No, exactly. Just indicating that sanitation is vital for human survival, and that if you have children falling sick and the elderly not able to take their medication because of a lack of water, then you're creating another human crisis, right? Just outside of not having water. But yeah, definitely thank you so much, Councillor Spongile, for taking this opportunity to speak to us. Is there anything else you'd like to say in final or in closing?
Yeah, in closing, I would say, speaking about my party, to say we have tried enough to push the municipality, because last 28, the MEC was here. This November, 28 November was here, and he confirmed that the municipality doesn't have money to pay rainwater. So you see, there's too much statement, but as a Democratic Alliance, we have tried and give people water. We ask donations. You can, Mama can attest. I was having a trucks and clean water that they are drinking, not dirty water. So their solution is not good enough. We need running water every day. The municipality must make a plan.
Thank you so much, Councillor. There you have it, straight from the lips of Councillor Zbongile Matebula, who's also a resident in this area, discussing how water issues are afflicting community members. You know, you have children falling sick. I mean, her own granddaughter has fallen sick owing to the lack of sanitation in the area, and just recounting her words, that's just one child of possibly many, one child who's able to receive medical attention. You have elderly people who, although you have solutions being made to mitigate the crisis, it's still not accommodating the elderly. They are not able to walk kilometers to go and collect water, adequate water for them to be able to use in their residence. And this is a solution that needs to be put to bed permanently by actually just making water run through, the piped water run through the taps and through the homes of the residents here in Emzinoni. Thank you for joining us. We will keep you updated with this crisis here in our neighboring province of Mpumalanga.
Sawubona ma, igama lami Umbali from ikhampani abayibiza i-Institute of Race Relations. Namhlanje size lana sizonibuza ngenkinga enibhekene nayo ngamanzi. Umama mhlambe angasitshela igama lakhe, asitshele ukuthi nineminyaka emingaki nihlala lana.
Mina ngipoli nathanjwe kwayo. Ayisidi isikhathi enhlangene 20 years ngilana. Nje sisimanzi into esiyinkinga ngayo la. so lokunyaka ophilile vele amanzi asiwatholi nama-road noma afikile awezi ngapha kithi amanzi afika ngale thina singangazi ngapha kufinyelela ukuthi asisothola amanzi vele nje kuyinkinga siyahlupheka vele sihlupheka kakhulu kabi ukuthi kufanele senze njani asazi nathi.
Okay, and then ukuze niwathole ngoba uthi awafiki kule side leni unenze njani?
Maroli afika ngale esikuntiyeleni lapha afikela ngakhona sethi nasikhona ukuya ngale ngovesi but mina vele ngimdala shem na 64 years angikhoni vele kufinyelela ngale ngigcoba ingolovani ngize namanzi ekhaya cha ngiyacolisa ngamanzi kulanje ngiyahlupheka vele anginamntwana futhi omncane anginantombazane ngiyimishi.
So ukuze wena uwathole ucela mhlambe omakhelwane o uwenze njani?
Kufanele ngibhadale abantu.
Ma ubhadala malini?
Isigubha sibiza 20 rand.
Okay, and then umama uyasebenza?
Angisebenzi ngiyahola ngihola impentsheni.
So kuye leyo pension kumele wazi ukuthi
amanzi endlini. Okay. Kufanele ngithole amanzi endlini ngikwazi ukuthi ngipheke phela isigeze ngizokwenza njani.
Okunye mhlambe ongathi ukudalela inkinga ngamanzi ongafuna ukusitshela ngakho
sicela siwabilise vele qala before siwaphuza ngoba iziso zike zasiphatha vele ngalamanzi siphathe strong gabe zihuda namagazi fanele sigijime eclinic sigijime ezibhedlela.
Umbuzo okugcina engathanda ukubuza wona to imeya yalana ungathanda ukuthini kuyena ungathanda ukuthi anenzeleni?
Sicela nje amanzi thina ukuthi basivulele amanzi sibe nawo sikwazi ukuthi nathi siphile njengabonke abantu abaphilayo ngamanzi.
That concludes our trip to Mpumalanga, Govan and Mbeki Municipality. We are standing right in front of a reservoir, and despite the appearance of water infrastructure, community members are still aggrieved by the lack of water. If anything, driving through this town, we've driven past Jojo tank after Jojo tank, from the high school in the area to houses on occasion where you drive by and you're able to see those Jojo tanks. In fact, we heard it straight from the Councillor Sibongile Matebula, about a stockpile that was started by her and a few of the other community members who are rotating who they will be donating to or contributing money towards so that they can be able to purchase Jojo tanks. We saw the provision that they're making for themselves for when water does indeed run out. She not only talked to us about how it's affecting the elderly, but children. It's affecting children's own health, in that children are collecting illnesses from not having adequate sanitation, and obviously that's a result of water not being provided in the area. We've spoken to small businesses who, even with their refusal to appear on camera, they were a bit camera shy, have said we can advocate on their behalf. Guest houses, laundromats, restaurants, all of whom have communicated how the lack of water is affecting their day-to-day lives and essentially their ability to provide and their ability to deliver products, goods and services to the communities they serve. Water is indeed essential, and without water, life is made extremely difficult. Doing business becomes super cumbersome, whether it's tanks having to be made available so that water is provided to community members, or whether it's people actually installing those Jojo tanks, people going out of their ordinary course of business to provide water so that they can be able to have access and that they can supply and provide to their communities. We will be keeping the mayor honest on his promises to increase capacity in this area, in the area of Emzinoni and other neighboring towns like Bethel, and we promise to keep you tuned as to the progress that's been made in increasing capacity and ultimately getting water through the taps of the people of this great town of Emzinoni. Until then, I am Makoni Maja from the Institute of Race Relations, and thank you for getting in tune with our coverage of the water crisis in Mpumalanga.